Welcome to this video about remotely installing the desktop client on end user's computer. Getting the desktop client installed on end user's computers as part of your project or your evaluation of Simplicity is important because it helps the end users to adopt the platform and make it easier for them to get on board. With the desktop client, more data is being added to Simplicity as you can enforce folders like the documents folder or project folders to be added to Simplicity. And once that data is in Simplicity, it helps the acceleration of end users using the platform. When data is shared with them, it's also much easier to consume that content once end users are able to sync that information to their computer. That's all good, but unfortunately, project owners or admins sometimes face issues to get the desktop client installed on end users' computers. For example, users don't know how to install the desktop client. They need to download and execute the installer, or users are not even allowed to install any software on their computer. And that is where you would normally go to your network administrator to install the client for them. Large enterprises, they usually use tools like Microsoft System Center or a GPO. But if you are in an evaluation project or you are a smaller sized organization, then the only option you have is manual installation. And because of that, during an evaluation, a GPO or an automated software push is usually too costly in terms of time and effort. This script will help you with that kind of deployment. It is a script that is being verified and, if necessary, modified by the system administrator or someone with global admin rights. You just collect a list of machines, you put the software package on a central location, and the PowerShell script will do the remote installation for you. And that allows you to install tens or even hundreds of computers in less than 30 minutes instead of hours or days, especially if you need to get the desktop client installed to users who are currently working from home. You share the software, collect a list of PCs, adjust the script to your needs, and execute it. A user with admin rights to install software will put the MSI somewhere centrally. A list of computers is being gathered and then run the script for those computers. The script will be executed sequentially. It will push the MSI, it will execute it and collect a log file. And then it will move on to the next one and the next one and the next one until all your computers in your script have completed the installation. And then, or at next login, they will have a working and configured desktop client. And in case you need to troubleshoot, all the log files are one single location. Talking about troubleshooting, we use WinRM for this feature. WinRM is usually enabled on most computers. If not, you can do that with PSExec, or you could include that also in your install script. In this demonstration, I started by creating a network share called software that I shared with everyone in my team so that they could access the client software. But the problem was that although the installation was here, people did not have local admin rights to install the software. So there is this PowerShell script that you can run with domain credentials. I have here a list of 3 computers to which I'd like to push the desktop client to. There are some variables like where is your software, where is your package. Here I'm going to use the MSI for the 64-bit computers to distribute. When that is done, I will consolidate my log files in that same folder. What the software will do is it will copy the installation file to a remote machine using a temporary folder. So first it will create that temporary folder and then it will copy the MSI to that remote machine. It will execute the remote installation, and the advantage there is, of course, I do not need to ask my end users to install the software because they don't have access to install software on their computer. I can do this remotely. When the installation is successful, it will collect the log files on my central location. So what I will do first is I want to install the software to this computer. It's the computer from Mr. Bob Blue. Let me put that in comment and uncomment that one. In order to get this running, let me execute it. It will ask me for credentials for the installation. And although this is not the domain administrator, I have credentials here that allows me to act as a user that can install the software on that computer. I will authenticate. And what it will do is it will try to copy the software to that computer. That was successful. And then it executes the remote install. And I'm going to do this with the same credentials, of course. And in this case, this machine has the remote execution not installed yet. So eventually it will fail. After a timeout, it will fail and it says the remote execution failed. WinRM cannot complete the operation, verify that specified computer is valid, blah, 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 blah. And actually the problem is that it is just not enabled. There are some options to do that. One of those options is SolarWinds. I installed that actually already. SolarWinds, you can enable remotely the remote execution. Simply enter the host name of that computer, authenticate using a user that has domain credentials. It will try to enable the remote execution. And I can tell you we have experienced both success and failure with this enabler. So although it says complete, in my situation it doesn't. Instead, for that I use PS Tools, and PS Tools can be downloaded as a zip file. That allows me, when I try this from an elevated command prompt, I can navigate to my folder, and there is psexec. What I'm gonna do is psexec the name of my computer, wpt sync blue, and I'm gonna execute silently winrm.cmd quick config-q. It's executing this now remotely. And of course, if you try that with a host name that exists, it will take a few seconds, and at the end it will report that the WinRemote works now. Voila, WinRM has been updated for remote management. The firewall is opened and the error code is 0. Okay, so now when I try my script again, you see that it now executes the remote install and it collects the log file, and my log file is here, and you see that it was implemented successfully. So if I now go to that computer, you see it immediately started. I haven't enabled single sign-on yet, so I will now need to authenticate using a password. I have not enabled silent onboarding, but of course when I do that, the user is not even bothered with these names. The issue here is that, for example, the computer already existed, so I need to rename that, and then it will, if the user wants to back up the desktop and the documents folder, because this user also has some folders already in Syncplicity, it will ask if the user wants to sync those folders locally, which I'm not going to do. The client started automatically, but of course you can also do that at next boot. That means that when the user restarts the computer, at that moment this initialization is being performed at next login. So what is the advantage? I do not need to ask the users to install the software, usually because those users do not have privilege to install software, and I don't need to go to IT to ask them to set up a GPO to push the desktop client to the end users.